I said bring another round, or get me your manager. Sir, I brought the bill for the previous drinks. When you switched tables I had to start a new order. Brandon took a deep breath and said, listen, just bring me another round of tequilas and please don't make me lose it. Sir, one moment please, let me get the manager. Brandon, a 22-year-old college dropout, was having fun at a bar. He had already passed a drinking limit, but wanted to impress the girls around him that night, particularly hoping to win Alex's heart. Loud music played and the girls danced on the dance floor. Brandon struggled to keep steady while trying to join them. After a few failed attempts, he gave up and slumped back on the sofa. 10 minutes later, the waiter returned with a tray of tequilas, the manager following closely. Seeing that Brandon was nearly asleep, the manager grabbed the waiter's hand and stopped him. I think he's had enough. A few moments later, the girls returned to their seats, tired. They laughed when they saw Brandon almost passed out. Hey Brandon, I thought you said you could last longer than that. How are you planning on impressing me? Alex giggled as she nudged Brandon to wake him up. Groggy, Brandon sat up and shouted, another round for us. The girls burst out laughing again. Apart from the security guards and staff, one other person didn't belong in the bar, Mrs. Jennifer Callahan. She had been sitting in one spot for over 2 hours. When asked if she wanted a drink, Jennifer just replied that a glass of orange juice would suffice. Among the mostly younger visitors, she looked out of place and drew people's attention. As she sat behind the bar, a group of likely college students stumbled over. When a guy who had clearly had too much saw Jennifer, he was surprised. Turning to face his friends, he mumbled, "Whose mom is that? Shouldn't she be tending to her grandkids or something?" Jennifer didn't hear it, but the bartender did. He smirked at the boys and wiped the counter after they left. He then approached Jennifer. "Excuse me, ma'am. I don't mean to bother you, and it's none of my business, but I get the feeling you're not here for fun." For the first time that evening, Jennifer looked up and smiled, appreciating the bartender's attentiveness. "You're right. I'm not here to enjoy myself, although if not for the loud music, I could come here sometimes. I know I'll sound like an overprotective mom, but I'm here to watch over my son. He's all I have, and I don't want him getting into trouble." Jennifer nodded towards the table where Brandon and the girls were sitting. "That's so nice of you, ma'am. Not many moms would do that." "I know, but he's out of control, and I'm afraid he might get into a fight and get hurt." Meanwhile, Brandon visited the bathroom, washed his face, and felt slightly refreshed. He returned to the table and told the girls, "Let's go. We're going to a nightclub. There's a new one downtown. It's a cool place. Come on, hurry up." Brandon bent down to grab his phone and car keys from the glass table. One of the girls, who seemed to still have some sense, spoke up. "I don't mind going to the nightclub, but we need to call a taxi. I'm not getting into your car, Brandon. I'm sorry." Brandon resented what Tiffany said. "You think I can't drive? If you're scared, go ahead and take a taxi. I'm driving my car." At that moment, a familiar voice came from behind. "Brandon, honey, please take a taxi." Jennifer loved Brandon dearly, but she could be strict sometimes, especially when he was drunk. Brandon didn't want to lose face in front of Alex, who saw him as tough and independent. This situation was undermining his partly fabricated image. He stood up straight and turned around. "Hey, mother, what are you doing here?" Ever since he started seeing himself as a grown-up and cool, he had developed a habit of calling her mother, particularly in public. Lately, Jennifer thought that Brandon was becoming more and more like her ex-husband, Donald. Donald was a couch potato who liked to sit around doing nothing. When Brandon was 5, Jennifer couldn't take his inactivity anymore and kicked him out of the house. Brandon had a deep-rooted feeling that his mother was the reason he grew up without a father. He had always acted as if he were taking revenge on her for his father. Once, after yet another argument, Brandon told his mother that if his father had been around, he wouldn't have felt so lonely growing up. Jennifer was deeply hurt by this. After all, she wanted the best for her son. However, Brandon preferred to play the victim rather than try to understand the situation. "Son, if you think you're lonely because I kicked your father out, why didn't he ever visit you or try to find you?" "Because you told him never to show up at our door, that's why." Brandon shouted before running outside. After that argument, Jennifer realized that Brandon wasn't ready to learn the truth. He was still just a kid. Jennifer's ex-husband Donald never wanted a relationship in the first place. He wasn't lost in life. He simply didn't want to take action to achieve anything. He spent his days watching TV, drinking beer, and hanging out with friends at bars while Jennifer stayed at home, caring for little Brandon and working as a stay-at-home truck dispatcher. She provided for the family, but even after 5 years, Donald didn't change. Before kicking him out, Jennifer asked Donald if he wanted to continue living like that, but he was content with his life. "Brandon, give me the keys, please," Jennifer asked, looking into her son's pleading eyes. She could tell he was begging her not to do this here and in front of his friends. Jennifer loved Brandon deeply and knew she had spoiled him with that love. But she also knew there wasn't much she could do about it. "Mom, just go home, all right?" Brandon's voice grew more and more irritated. "I'll leave only after making sure my son is safe and not driving drunk." Brandon noticed that Alex, the girl he was trying to impress, smirked at the scene. Furious, he snapped at Jennifer. "Why are you stalking me all the time? Why are you always chasing after me? I'm sick and tired of you." Brandon stormed out of the bar and headed to his car, a gift from his mom for his 20th birthday. Jennifer hurried after him. She saw him get into the car but couldn't stop him from starting the engine. However, she managed to run around and jump into the passenger seat. Ignoring Jennifer's pleas, Brandon hit the gas and sped wildly down the highway. She yelled, "Everyone has normal moms, but you're the only freak. Brandon, pull over. You're drunk. Please stop. You're gonna hit someone. Get the hell out. I don't want to see you anymore. I'm tired of seeing your face." As they swerved between cars, Jennifer's thoughts froze. Her son's words hit her like a ton of bricks. Maybe it was time to let him go and not worry about what would happen to him. Brandon had turned 23 a week ago, and Jennifer believed he was old enough to be responsible for his actions. Just as she was about to ask him calmly to pull over, they heard a loud thump. Brandon stopped the car immediately, suddenly sober. "Mom, I think I hit someone." Jennifer screamed and got out of the car. An old man lay on the ground. Brandon had clipped him with a bumper while attempting a right turn at an intersection. Given the man's condition, it was clear there wasn't much they could do to help him. Jennifer immediately dialed 911. "Mom, what are we going to do now?" "We can't do much." Sirens in the distance signaled that the ambulance and police were on their way. Brandon looked at his mother strangely. "Mom, can you get me my cigarettes? They should be on the dashboard." Jennifer approached the car. Her mind wasn't functioning properly and she didn't know what to do. She sat in the driver's seat and searched for the pack. "Where is it? I don't see it, Brandon." As she leaned in to look under the seat and in the glove compartment, the police and the ambulance arrived. The 2 officers approached the old man, and the paramedics confirmed he wasn't breathing. They walked towards the car and stopped in front of Jennifer. "She's probably going to be charged with reckless driving," one of them said to the other. "What do you mean, she?" Jennifer looked at her son in surprise. Brandon was already telling the 3rd officer how his mother had been driving wildly despite his attempts to make her stop. He admitted that he had been behind the wheel initially, but claimed that his mom had ordered him to stop and they had switched seats. "It's my car, but like I told you," I said. "Mom, pay attention and look straight." I think she didn't even notice the old man because she was driving like crazy. "Brandon, what are you talking about?" Jennifer's eyebrows shot up. She just smiled back sadly. "I'm sorry, Mom." Jennifer had a choice, but she knew what Brandon was doing. She knew that he was counting on her to take the blame. She could have told the officers that her son was lying, and that he had been driving the whole time, but she couldn't bring herself to say it. She silently accepted reality. It's a strange kind of mother's love. Jennifer never expected to go through so much heartache just because she wanted to care for her child. She sat down on the ground and sobbed as Brandon continued to share details of what had happened. She was exhausted and didn't have the strength to resist. She let everything go and prepared to accept her fate. She signed all the necessary papers, was taken into custody, and didn't resist. I've never seen a calm person in a similar situation before, ma'am. Thank you for your cooperation, the officer said, surprised. The court will take your cooperation into account. And then there was the trial. Jennifer didn't even look up when Brandon testified against his own mother. He was excited that he had avoided potential jail time. Jennifer was sentenced to 7 years in prison for reckless driving that caused the pedestrian's death. When she heard the verdict, she felt utterly broken. It was as if a fog had descended upon her, and all she could hear were muffled voices. She had never felt so empty inside. 2 years passed. Brandon hadn't even visited his mother once. Jennifer wasn't expecting him either. She had long decided that she no longer had a son. At Jennifer's request, her friend sold her dispatching company. A portion of the money went to the victim's family as compensation, and the rest was deposited in Jennifer's name at the bank. Cindy was the only person who not only visited Jennifer in prison, but was also outraged that she was still kept in the general population, despite her deteriorating health. Jennifer had fallen off the face of the earth. She didn't care about anything at all. She spent her first days in prison wondering why she had to go through all of this. At some point, she just wanted to die, to disappear forever. After several visits and hours of conversation, Jennifer finally confided in Cindy about what had really happened. When Cindy realized that Jennifer had gone to prison to protect her son, she was heartbroken. But as she learned more about Brandon and Jennifer's relationship, she became outraged. Unbeknownst to Jennifer, a special process was unfolding behind the scenes. Cindy worked hard to bring the case back to light and restore justice. Ironically, by this time, the same prosecutor who had built the case against Jennifer was now working as a defense attorney. Cindy discovered this and contacted that very lawyer, Larry Garcia. One day, Cindy paid a visit to Jennifer accompanied by Larry. Jennifer was puzzled to see Larry. Cindy proceeded to fill her friend in on what had transpired over the past few months, not allowing Jennifer to respond. "Jen, I've got your back, so don't even try to talk me out of this. It's just wrong. I'm gonna get you out of here. I don't care if he's your son. It doesn't matter who he is. This just isn't right." Jennifer sighed and looked at Larry. "Jennifer, it's good to see you again. This time I'm on your side. I've reviewed your case and I think we can get you out of here." "So what? What happens after that?" Jennifer asked, her voice tinged with indifference. "I'll be released and then what? I've lost everything. My company is gone. People I know think I'm a deranged convict. Am I supposed to go around telling people that I was falsely imprisoned and that my son should be the one behind bars? Why would I want a life like that? Can you tell me?" Larry struggled to find an appropriate response. "Well, it's freedom." "Yeah, but freedom can be a lot worse than life here," Jennifer countered. "Don't you understand? We can't undo the past. Things will never go back to how they were. In fact, you might even be worse." However, Larry turned out to be a different kind of person. He visited Jennifer more often than she expected, and eventually, she even began to look forward to his visits. Meanwhile, Brandon had won over Alex's heart, and they had been living together for several years. When Brandon mentioned the substantial sum of money in his mother's bank account, Alex didn't hesitate to be with him. However, the fact that Brandon still couldn't access the account occasionally troubled her. "But it's not your money, Brandon. Alex, please. 7 years in prison is no laughing matter. She must have changed. I haven't heard from her in so long that she might not even be alive," Brandon argued. "But you don't know anything for certain," Alex persisted. "It doesn't matter anymore, Alex. I know my mother. She loves me so much that she would give me all the money, you'll see. By the way, I never understood how she convinced you to get in the passenger seat when you stormed out of the bar and you took off like a rocket." Alex believed him, and Brandon wiped the sweat from his forehead. If she ever found out the truth, she would leave him in an instant. And that was something Brandon couldn't afford. He waited a few more months before addressing the inheritance. Recently, Brandon had encountered Cindy, his mother's friend and former assistant. Although Cindy had once been the company's vice president, she intended to ignore Brandon and continue on her way. However, it was Brandon who approached her. "Hey, Cindy, have you heard anything from my mom? Why are you asking about her all of a sudden?" Cindy smirked. Well, she was supposed to be released by now. Her sentence is over. I'm just concerned because after all, it is prison and people can die in there. Brandon attempted to maintain his composure, but his heart pounded in his chest as though it feared the truth. Cindy scoffed. People die, you say? Is that what you're waiting for? Well, you can consider her dead already, and you'll never see her again in your life. What do you mean? Consider dead? Can you explain in simpler terms? Of course I can. What I'm trying to say is that you are an absolute piece of garbage and a total jerk. With that, Cindy turned and left. Her heart raced, and she barely restrained herself from saying even worse things to him. However, she didn't want to become stressed over him, thinking he didn't deserve that much attention. Meanwhile, a broad smile spread across Brandon's face. He had heard precisely what he needed from Cindy. He knew he could finalize everything soon and needed to initiate the inheritance process. Brandon genuinely believed his mother was either gravely ill or already dead. He relied on his lawyers. Arriving home excitedly, he informed Alex that they would soon be going on a trip abroad as he had promised. Alex responded with elegance when she heard Brandon's words. Really, you're not late, but you're not exactly on time either. I was starting to get disappointed in you. We ran out of money a while ago and you haven't budged. I'm doing all I can. I met with the lawyer and soon I'll inherit everything. Alex gazed at Brandon with shining eyes. Inheritance? Is she dead? You won't believe it, but her friend told me she is. Brandon, there's so much money there. That's what I'm talking about, baby. A month later, the lawyer invited Brandon to his office. As Brandon began to get dressed, Alex chimed in. I'm coming with you, honey. I want to hear it with my own ears. I can't believe my dreams are finally coming true. Overwhelmed with emotions, Alex expressed her excitement. Brandon felt like a real man, capable of fulfilling any of his girlfriend's desires. He even donned a suit for the occasion. Alex looked at him. Honey, you're so cruel. Your mother died and you're dressed up like it's a celebration or something. It's her fault. I don't want to waste my time grieving. I just want to enjoy life. I suppose you're right. You'll have to live with the label of having a mother who killed a pedestrian. That's exactly right, and this life is compensation for my suffering. Brandon tried to end the conversation, uncomfortable with his direction. He urged Alex to hurry, and they drove to the lawyer's office. It was surprising to see Cindy sitting there as well. Brandon felt irritated when he saw her, briefly wondering if his mother might have left something for this woman in her will. However, the situation proved to be much more intriguing than that. Brandon had expected to be handed all the necessary papers, but the lawyer interjected. Before I announce anything, I want you to watch a short clip. Annoyed, Brandon asked, Can we skip that part? Unfortunately, your mother requested that you see the video first. Everyone turned their attention to the screen, where Jennifer appeared, alive and healthy, holding a baby in her arms. She was smiling. Is she alive? Brandon asked, but no one responded. In the video, Jennifer wished Brandon happiness. She acknowledged that he was a grown man now, and on his own, just as he had wanted. At the end of the clip, she advised him to be honest with himself and never let down those around him. Brandon, my son, you didn't want to have anything to do with me even after I served time, your time in prison. If you didn't want to see me, I thought there was no point in you using my money either, so I withdrew everything from the account. But don't worry, I'm leaving you a one-room apartment in the city. Good luck, son. When the video ended, Brandon sobbed like a wounded animal. Alex stormed out of the room without sparing him a glance. Cindy was upset with Jennifer because even under these circumstances, she was still acting like a true mother by leaving something for her son. Meanwhile, across the country, Jennifer was sitting with someone who genuinely valued and loved her, her new boyfriend, Larry Garcia. During the evidence collection process, Larry had been astonished by Jennifer's huge heart. As they gathered all the evidence and prepared to announce a retrial, Jennifer halted everything. With not much time remaining before her release, she still didn't want to hurt her son. Larry considered the situation and suggested that she should let him go, making him accountable for his actions. After much debate, they agreed to leave Brandon alone and never return to him, per Larry's request. Larry was single, having experienced a failed marriage with his ex-wife who had cheated on him with a client. She was also a lawyer. After Jennifer's release, they met frequently and Larry courted her. Eventually, they grew close and decided to live together. A year later, they had a daughter. Despite everything that had transpired, Jennifer felt happy and grateful for her current life. The hallway of the DMV office was stuffy and crowded with people who were visibly annoyed by the long wait. The air conditioner in the office wasn't working properly, and they were all suffering from a lack of fresh air and fanning themselves with hats and folders. A young security guard was serving the crowd with a disinterested expression, noting that the people in the room seemed as though they had been there for years. The same seniors, migrants in dirty work clothes, and nervous young mothers with crying children were all present, their faces tired and worn. The hallway of the DMV in this average town was not particularly interesting, but the security guard's attention was drawn to the tall, broad-shouldered figure of an older man in worn clothes. The man in the faded blue jacket stood out among the crowd. Though his jacket was similar in style to those worn by soldiers, he did not have the polished and well-groomed appearance of a Navy warrior. Instead, he had an unkempt and almost scary look. Half of his face was covered by a large burned scar, and his hands, which he kept hidden in his pockets, were similarly disfigured. He towered over the other people in the hallway, looking out of place and anxious. He kept glancing at his watch, aware that the DMV office was closing for lunch soon. The security guard had a grin on his face as he said to the man, "Looks like you won't make it to your appointment today, old man. Lucy and Denise will not be sticking around any longer." Lucy and Denise were middle-aged women who worked at the DMV, and they were tired of dealing with the long lines of hopeful visitors. They had become arrogant and only seemed to care if the visitors brought them money or expensive gifts. There were also new employees working in the office. The young clerk, Jennifer, was different from her colleagues, Lucy and Denise. She was a recent graduate of an orphanage. She had no significant wealth and did not accept bribes. She worked diligently, following the example of her beloved teacher, Mrs. McKenna, who had taken her under her wing like a mother. Lucy and Denise were pleased to have a straight orphan working in the department. That's what they called Jennifer behind her back. Lucy and Denise took advantage of Jennifer's willingness to work and often left her with most of the work, allowing them to relax and read magazines or go shopping during their lunch breaks, and often returning late to the office. They had a favored topic of conversation, which was gossiping and making fun of Jennifer's appearance. They did not want to acknowledge that Jennifer, who was modestly and tastefully dressed with minimal makeup on a fresh face, was 100 times more beautiful than they were. Instead of working on their own shortcomings and trying to improve themselves, Lucy and Denise enjoyed spreading rumors and talking ill of Jennifer. Jennifer's hard-working attitude was considered dull by Lucy and Denise. Her single status also became a source of ridicule, earning her the nickname Bird among the two women. But with only 50 minutes remaining before the lunch break, Lucy and Denise picked up their expensive bags with impassive expressions and left the office with dignity. The man with the burned face was taken aback and said, "Girls, please don't leave. I've been waiting in line since this morning." Lucy and Denise ignored the man's plea and did not even bother to look at him. But he persisted, his voice filled with desperation. "Please understand, I came all the way from my village. My boss leaves in 20 minutes and it's the last one for today. I just need to change the photo on my driver's license, please." Lucy replied irritably, "Listen, old man, there are many of you here and there are just 3 of us. Come back after lunch break." The man pleaded further, "Please, I can't come back after lunch. My mother is waiting at home. She has a sick heart, you must understand." The man tried to plead with the angry DMV clerks, but they didn't listen to him. Denise's face twisted with disgust as she shouted, "Guards, get this Palma out of here immediately." The security guard, who had been dozing off, quickly woke up and followed Denise's orders. He pushed the man out of the room without thinking twice. He was scared of losing his job. He didn't want to disappoint his wife, who would leave him if he lost his job. The guard pushed the man out the door and locked it with a key. When Jennifer heard the commotion, she ran out to see what was happening. She went outside to catch up with the man, but Lucy stopped her with a sneer on her face. If you help every customer like that, you'll never have enough time to finish all the work. One person helping everyone else will just slow everyone down. But Jennifer ignored them and called out to the man. He turned to her with hopeful eyes. When Jennifer saw the burned scar on his face, she hesitated but quickly composed herself and said, "Please come back to the office. I will take care of everything and you'll make it in time for your bus." As Jennifer worked on the man's paperwork, he sat hunched over in a chair, staring blankly at one spot. He muttered, "Is there really no justice in this world? What for? What for I risked my life for them?" Jennifer handed the completed document to the man who was still visibly upset. "Here you go, please," Jennifer said as she handed the document to him. "And please, I'm sorry for what my colleague said. Their work is stressful and they're burned out. Unfortunately, this is what happens to people at the office sometimes." The man with the burned scars thanked Jennifer and wished her happiness before leaving the office. An hour later, Lucy and Denise came back from their lunch break and were met with angry glares from the people waiting in line. Someone in the crowd said, "Insolent." No words. The girl is working alone while they just walk around. The anger of the people was echoed by others. "No, we can't let this go. We should file a complaint." Someone sighed sadly. "What good will it do? They'll just get fired and replaced by others. It's better to just give them money and let them choke on it." The day continued as normal. In the evening, Lucy and Denise laughed and mocked Jennifer. "We have never seen such a fool, and you will be the first one. That man lied to you and got help out of pity, and you got tricked." But the girl didn't pay attention to her colleague's words. She quickly went home where her beloved cat was waiting for her. Felix promptly got bored and tore the wallpaper again, Jennifer thought with a smile, happily, tapping her heels on the pavement. A few days later, the authorities paid a visit to the DMV. The guard perked up when he saw the city mayor, Mr. Reckenzone, getting out of his expensive SUV with his entourage. Mitchell Reckenzone confidently marched down the narrow corridor and firmly grasped the door handle. When he heard, "Busy, no need to roam around without a call," he flung the door open to the office. Lucy and Denise were frozen in place, unable to speak. Their coffee mugs trembled in their ringed hands. Jennifer looked on with interest as the formidable boss exclaimed, "What kind of nonsense is going on here?" The mayor continued, "The other day an honorable resident of our city and war hero Chris Dobra came here, and you humiliated him." Lucy and Denise tried to defend themselves, batting their eyelashes, but the mayor didn't even want to listen. It turns out that the hero missed the bus after all. Desperate, he decided to walk with the hope of catching a ride. An expensive SUV stopped in front of Chris. The driver was the mayor himself, who recognized the honorable citizen and felt it was his duty to take him to his destination. Chris Dober, a submariner midshipman, served in a nuclear submarine for a long time. One day, a terrible fire broke out on the ship, threatening to turn into a large-scale disaster that could destroy dozens of human lives and cause irreparable damage to the environment. After putting out the fire, Mr. Dobry received severe burns and became disabled. Chris was discharged from the service and sent home for a well-deserved rest. But in his hometown, new troubles awaited him. His wife, seeing the condition he was in, quickly packed her suitcase and left him. Later, Chris found out that his ex-wife was having an affair with a small market trader. After that, she was seen with another guy and then another, an unemployed drunkard. Mr. Dobray went to his village to live with his elderly mother and led a solitary life. He started drinking, but did not lose control. He helped his mother with housework, completely forgetting to take care of his appearance. He forgot that many people still judge a person by their clothes, so he came to the DMV office in shabby clothes that made him feel comfortable. In the village, the inhabitants had long known and gotten used to his old midshipman's pea jacket and the scars on his face. After the mayor paid a visit, both Lucy and Denise were let go, and Jennifer was given the role of head of the DMV office. Although the position came with added responsibilities and concerns, Jennifer embraced the challenge and made an effort to treat customers with kindness. She assembled a young team and the DMV began operating efficiently. As a result, customers no longer had to wait in long lines, and the employees received positive feedback from satisfied visitors. Jennifer's personal life also took a turn for the better when she met a charming man who worked as a camera operator for a local television station. The journalists visited the DMV to film a story about Jennifer and her profession, and the young operator was taken with Jennifer's friendly and open demeanor. They went on a walk together after work, and soon after, he invited her to the movies. A month later, Jennifer and her new boyfriend Greg became inseparable, and her cat, who had previously been destructive due to boredom, stopped tearing up the wallpaper as he was content with a new love in the household. On Memorial Day, Jennifer and her friends, including Greg, who was filming a story for the evening news, attended a gathering together. Jennifer was invited as a guest of honor, being recognized as the best social worker. While on the stage, she saw a distinguished man in full dress uniform. The sailor's chest was adorned with medals and decorations. Jennifer recognized the man as Chris Stover, a brave hero. The sight of him made her heart race with pride. Today, the hero gave a heartfelt speech to the residents. He shared his life story and spoke about his deeds, modestly noting that he fulfilled his duties and served his country not for the sake of receiving medals. The most important thing is to be human. Not everyone can put themselves in harm's way or sacrifice themselves for others. For me, the epitome of honesty and integrity was a kind and lovely girl who reached out to me when everyone else had turned away. As Jennifer heard her name being called, she saw the hero extending an invitation for her to come up to the podium. With the help of others, she climbed up onto a tall platform. The entire city erupted in applause as the honorary citizen presented her with a beautiful bouquet of lush roses. Greg captured the moment on camera, and in the evening while watching the news, he excitedly told Jennifer that she should have no doubts about his sincere and true love for her. "Why?" Jennifer asked. "Look how beautiful you are on the screen, just like a movie star," he replied. "They say that the camera loves a person, meaning the operator is infatuated with the person they captured." Jennifer laughed and said, "Greg, you scoundrel, on the screen I may look like a movie star, but in real life I'm a plain Jane, huh?" Greg hugged his beloved, looked into her eyes and said quietly, "In life you are 100 times more beautiful." What are your thoughts on the story and characters? How would you handle things differently? Share your thoughts, as they may be helpful for those experiencing difficult times. If you enjoyed the story, please consider liking and subscribing for more content. Click the notification bell button. Thank you, and we'll see you soon.